yourself what the real Wolf of Wall Street, and you're listening to the Anthony Rogers Show.
Welcome back to the greatest show in the universe. Today we're doing an episode on the Lincoln Project, and specifically John Weaver and co-founder and prominent anti-Trump group Lincoln Project. And today, a lot of fucked up shit was happening. Basically, 21 men so far have accused him of sexual harassment, which is ranging from getting people jobs by performing sexual favors or something like that to anyway, I'm let the expert tell the story. Ryan Girdusky is on the line. How you doing, man?
Hey, good. Thanks for having me on.
No doubt. Appreciate making the time for this. You're a busy, man. But yeah, so can we go into a little more of the stories? You broke the story 3 weeks ago?
I broke the story 3 weeks ago. I have been working the story since the summertime. John Weaver followed me on Twitter, I guess I have no idea why, but he did. And then immediately afterwards, several young men reached out to me and said what their experience had been with John Weaver, that he had approached them, offering professional advice and offering to be a mentor of sorts, offering to get them jobs in politics, and then immediately switching the conversation to a sexual manner, asking either for sex or for nude photos or whatnot. And a lot of these guys were just 20, 21, trying to make it in the business, trying to get a professional career, get their footholds, seeing up someone who, is a powerful person in politics, and exploiting them and using his power and the trust he had from the position he had against them. And so I started working the story, and it was a series of ups and downs throughout the entire summer of young men saying they would come forward and dropping out. And I needed at least somebody to be on the record in order for me to expose what had happened, because I have a lot of people on background, but I needed one person to say, no, this is my story, this is who I am. Otherwise, I'd be liable for a defamation lawsuit. So finally, after months of just failed times of trying to sit there and get someone to claim what happened, in January, I finally tweeted that this story was out there. And luckily enough, and accidentally, young men just started coming forward and admitting it on Twitter, who it was, what happened to them. So I could finally publish a story because I had a public confirmation. And then today, on Sunday, the New York Times went further, citing my story that came out on January the 11th, saying that some of these men, which this is something I didn't even know, some of these men were as young as 14 years old. At that point, they're not men; they're boys. I mean, they're
and that's where the problem is. Yeah, I think, in my opinion, I don't care if somebody's gay or whatever, but I feel pedophilia is the fucked up part.
It's not a question of pedophilia. It's not a question of sex. It's a question of exploiting somebody using your position of power. Some of these people did end up having sexual encounters with John Weaver, and there was no job that followed. You're not in a position to sit there and say, I will give you X, I will give you a job if you give me sex. I mean, that's just not a position.
No, another good point.
That's the story isn't about sex. The story is about abuse of power. And I mean, this is what Harvey Weinstein did. This is what a lot of men in positions of power who have the ability to hire and fire people did. And a lot of these are young guys. They're 22-year-olds, 21-year-olds, 19-year-olds. They don't want to admit that they were sexually harassed by a man.
Right.
And so they were silenced. And it's also the Lincoln Project. Remember, Lincoln Project is all lawyers. They're almost all corporate lawyers. They're a gigantic multi-million-dollar law firm. Many of these people were afraid of being sued by saying this. Laura knows I was when I came the story out. So that's why the story expanded substantially after that. So when the story initially broke in early January with my reporting, I reached out to the Lincoln Project. They were silent. Then it was on the Laura Ingraham show. Laura Ingraham show reached out. They were silent. Then they dropped the founders page of their website, which featured John Weaver. Then Axios did a story. John Weaver said, I'm gay, even though he's married with children, that he's gay. And they said that's fine. That's fine. That's his statement stands for itself. Now they're saying he's a predator and that they had no idea, that they were completely blindsided. That's not true. when I started doing this reporting, it was astounding to me how many people already knew about him. There's zero chance that they did not know that this was going on, and they did not care. Karl Rove leveled this accusation against John Weaver dating back to the 90s in Texas.
Huh. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of crazy because like I feel like like they're almost all like, I don't want to say this because I don't know, but like I feel it makes me feel like a lot of people are in on this because like at first it was the Catholic Church like being exposed, and then it was like maybe Hollywood, Prince Andrew, some stuff like that like recently, and like the Epstein thing, and then like now it's like this, and like if everybody knew, it's like are all these people like, I mean, it's very convenient that all the people that don't like Donald Trump end up being pedophiles. Like, I mean, and then like it's really weird to me.
Well, I mean, the pedophile thing, I honestly did not know. I'm sure people did not know. And as far as I know, there was only one case of someone only being 14. Not that that's okay. It was only one case. I'm just saying that this wasn't the majority of cases. And for anyone wondering, the number of young men who have come forward at this point are over 100.
Damn.
So this isn't a simple situation of, oh, this was like 3 guys that he was messaging over a long period of time. These were dozens of men. Sometimes he would message one on Monday and then another one on Tuesday and another one on Thursday. It was like ongoing and it was constant. He was asking them to switch schools so they could be closer to him. He was asking them for their phone number so he can call them late at night when his wife was sleeping or if he was on a work trip. And it was constant of, how are your grades doing? How are your school doing? I could help mentor you. I went to your college. I'm from Texas. It was I'm in the Lincoln Project. I hate Trump too. What's your how well hung are you? What's your favorite sexual positions? It was constant, where it would start off as a professional. People thought they were, and listen, if no one's been in politics, this is not an easy industry excuse me, to break into. This is not like you get an apprenticeship and then you have a job. A lot of it's networking, and a lot of it is very, very, very hard to actually kind of break into. It's a very difficult business. There's a lot of people who struggle and then they just end up doing something else, or who want to be good at it and they're just not good at it. So the idea of having an older mentor willing to help you break into it it's something that most people would love. I would have loved it when I was that age, because I didn't have anybody like that. And then he uses
nobody's pitching makes sense. Yeah, nobody's pitching makes sense. Just grooming people. Yeah.
It's a grooming operation, exactly. So that's why the story gained substantial legs, and the Lincoln Project itself has now changed their explanation of if they knew, how they knew, when they knew, over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, it looks like they just dropped him and they're just like condemning him and blah, like just kind of like being like, yeah, not us, the kind of thing. But,
right.
But it is kind of weird, like the morally, just at the very least, like knowing these things and not like, look at me, like I don't know how to describe it, like knowing these things and dealing with it until like it gets publicity, I guess. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, and the thing is, when I reported, they just didn't say anything because I work for a small outlet. And then when a larger outlet came forward, they didn't say anything. And then when a larger outlet came forward, they said, "Oh, I'm just gay." And then finally, when the New York Times came forward, they had to completely dismiss it and say, and I don't dismiss it, and actually come out with a statement. But they try to ignore it as long as possible and pretend it just didn't exist. And that's when the outlets were reporting it. Before they were reporting it, they were actually complicit in their ignorance.
That's like crazy to think about, yeah. And like, how did you originally get this story? You said you just followed you on Twitter, and then people started telling you, basically.
Yeah,
Because your press.
Apparently, no. I think because I think young guys were trying to warn other young guys. I mean, I'm not that young. I'm 33.
You have a baby face, though. Yeah, so I can see why.
I moisturize. But they assumed that I was, I guess, much younger than I actually am. But I'm not somebody, I mean, I have my own career at this point. I'm older and I've established myself. So, I mean, John Weaver couldn't have offered me anything to, put me in a compromising situation. I don't need anything from somebody like him. But they, I guess, were, and I didn't even know these guys. They didn't follow me on Twitter, but they had been following everyone that he followed. And if he followed someone who was considered a young guy, they reached out to them and said, "You need to be careful." Okay. So they're like the real heroes of the story. They're the ones who actually did something about it and tried to do something about it. And even just today, some guy reached out to me and said to me, I read your story and I thought that I was the only one. And he just, I mean, it's so many at this point who just said like they just didn't want to say anything because they felt like, you know, it's hard for a man to sit there and say that they felt emasculated, that they were being preyed on, because it's not something that a guy generally is. And then it's something that is any victim, I guess, of being preyed upon would be embarrassed by and not want to talk about.
Yeah. No, it's hard for people just to be authentic, let alone authentic on something like a crazy traumatizing like level.
Right. And this isn't
Like-
like Judge Kavanaugh where someone came back 15, you know, this isn't like right before an election that I broke the story. This isn't right when he was going for a confirmation for a Supreme Court judgeship. And this isn't like I didn't have the proof. I have dozens of text messages and direct messages and emails that John put out there. John Weaver put out there. So it wasn't like this isn't a baseless accusation from a million years ago. These accusations are as recently as the summer while I was working on the story.
Yeah, that's crazy though. That's like, those are like, is there like evidence of like these people being, this sounds crazy, but is there like evidence of these people being like funked with or messed with by this man or manipulated into that? Like they have text messages from him basically. That's what you're saying?
Sorry, repeat that question.
Yeah, it was really badly worded. But basically, they have text messages with him trying to like do all these things. Basically, was what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, text messages saying, "Why don't you switch schools and
Right.
move closer to me? When are you going to be in this city? When I'll be in this city? Let's get coffee." Another time, the most explicit was when someone said, "Hey, let's have a meeting in my hotel room," and then he approached him to try to have sex with him in the hotel room. So it ranged, and it started off usually with, "Oh, you need professional guidance. You need a mentor. I'll be your mentor."
And then he
I'll
feels it
help
out,
you.
and like, yeah, it's like a dude hitting on a girl at a bar almost. It's just like, here's a drink, and then like, and then like just bullshit they can get in with like in a conversation almost like this. But it's
Right.
like because he's
The
like,
opening was always about professional help, and it was always unwarranted. It wasn't like these guys were saying, you know, I want to date an older person your age or whatever. It was always it would always start off one thing and quickly expand. Or like another guy, it was like, "Oh, do you play sports? You look like you play sports. What's your build like?" I mean, like, and then it would just follow through and increase and increase and increase and increase and increase and increase and increase. So sometimes it was incremental. Sometimes it was very, 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 very straightforward.
That's crazy. You're a great journalist for getting those like text messages and all that information. That's crazy. And then like your post on here basically talking about like how the Lincoln statement, the statement from the Lincoln Project was basically just like John Weaver led a secret life that was built on a foundation of deception at every level. He's a predator, a liar, and abuser. We extend our deepest sympathies to those who are targeted by his deplorable and predatory behavior. We discussed and outrage that someone in a position of power and trust would use it for these means. The totality of his deceptions are beyond anything. They're basically just like they're trying to deny all plausibility, basically. And you're saying that these people known for a while, saying
they 100% knew, because first of all, they knew since my story broke. My story broke 3 weeks ago. They didn't fire him then, and they didn't put that statement out then. They waited till the New York Times came out with the statement, first of all. Secondly, if you look at the end of that statement reads he was never something like he was never with the Lincoln Project people or something like to that effect.
Okay. Let's see if it's imagine we have an absolute shock, like someone betrayed and deceived. No time. And we are grateful and beyond words that at no time was John Weaver in physical presence of any member of the Lincoln Project. Holy shit.
Okay, okay. He was on 60 Minutes with them.
There's evidence of it on video. That's hilarious.
He did a 60 Minutes interview with them. So I have no idea what the hell they're talking about.
Yeah, well, you can't lie in the internet age anymore. You just have to like be yourself and truthful. Like,
it's so obviously false. Like it's provably false. Within like a Google search is provably false. He's in pictures with them. So it makes no sense whatsoever. And I know that they know, because when I was working on the story, I mean, I was working originally with another journalist to do it. And when I was having all the hiccups and the upsets and it wasn't coming through, and I know for a fact members of Lincoln Project knew about it because word was getting out that I was working on the story, and they were reaching out to friends of mine, figuring out how to sabotage it. Oh. So I know that they knew, and I know that they knew for a long time. And by the way, everyone in Washington knew. every time I said to somebody, I called another journalist. I'll give you an example. Well-known journalist. I'm not saying their name, but I called them because I've never done a story on sexual harassment before, and I did not know how to approach a victim of sexual harassment. So I called them because they've done a lot of articles on sexual harassment. I said, how do I speak to someone, especially a younger man, about being sexually harassed by a young man? I said they were not by a young man, but being sexually harassed by a man. And I said to them, they were harassed by a well-known Republican political consultant, and they said, "Oh, John Weaver," without me saying a word. They said John Weaver. Everybody knew. It was astounding. Another person who's a very, very prominent conservative writer who hates Trump was offered to be a member of the Lincoln Project and said, "I won't do anything with John Weaver attached with it because we all know who he is." So it's not, there's zero chance, you're talking, Karl Rove has been talking about this for 20 years about, who he was. So there's no chance that they did not know. I know that for a fact. And if they were so upset when they found out, then they would have put that statement out when I wrote my story 3 weeks ago, which they did not. They put it out only when the New York Times wrote the story.
Yeah, this is all over right now. Like the whole day, like it's crazy. Like and like you have to say they never in a room with him. It's like hilarious to me when he's like the co-founder of like the fucking company.
He helped he was the co-founder of it.
I know it's so crazy, and like it's just like, I mean, the lies are funny, not like the damage done to like people and stuff, but I think like just like the excuses are funny to me for some reason. But yeah, no, actuality is like crazy. Honestly, just manipulating people for I don't know however long. I mean, like this is just there's so many people that got a hold of you like recently within a time period. You know what I mean? Like how long does this go back? That's old. It's like how long does this go back? I guess.
When did I start? Like when did he follow me?
No, I meant like if Karl Rove's been saying this since the '90s, I wonder how long this guy has been like this.
Well, it seemed to expand substantially when he became prominent on Twitter. So if he's been doing it because remember, before then you actually have to meet somebody, you have to be in the same place as them. On Twitter, you can be having direct messages with dozens and dozens and dozens of people. I mean, I get dozens of Twitter messages and requests for Twitter messages all the time. So it's not that difficult to reach a lot of people, especially those with common interests.
That's literally how this episode started. I literally just reached out to you in the same exact way you're describing, for the show.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great example and very true. Because I guess like older people never saw that coming, like how connected we are and like I'm interested in seeing how much further that comes. I mean, we're all being monitored all the time, so it's like we're going to be public. That's a totally different rabbit hole though. But dude, I appreciate you coming on here, man. Like, do you want to throw out any like links to any like anything you write for, anything you want to throw out? Or
yeah, I'll sit there and say that I write for the American Conservative magazine. They were the only outlet willing to actually publish this and work with me on this. So shout out to them. If you want to read the original story, it's on the American Conservative magazine, where my podcast is, the Right Now podcast. And then if you follow me on Twitter at Ryan Girdusky, and then I have a book that I wrote last year called They're Not Listening, How the Elites Created the National Populist Revolution. So that's available for sale if you'd like to buy it.
And I'll have all those links in the description if you're listening at home, if you want to check that out. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me.